Recently, I've encountered a Marco Meatball video that I find to be troubling, if not only by the title and thumbnail being very hard clickbait, but also by what is said in the video about critique. Critique is something that's essential, especially on the internet and for the buyers and creators of certain products. But before we break down the Marco Meatball video, I believe that I've also encountered one of the many roots of this form of opinion, but is also an opinion that mistakes flat negativity for critique. This intro clip we're going to be covering is from a very bad but sad boy.
What the hell is this?
It's from his video discussing Dragon Ball Super Resurrection F.
I am not very fond of bad content. That might sound a bit odd, considering the basic bread and butter for video essay channels like this is to complain about some random piece of media and explain how its very existence is an affront to God, but I've felt this way for a long time now.
Already this category of bad content is way too broad. And to say it's the basic bread and butter for video essay channels makes things more confusing. This intro is from a video talking about how you feel the Resurrection F Dragon Ball movie has harmed the franchise. Does this mean you're making bad content? Because it sounds like you're going to be making a critique. What exactly would put a video in the category of bad content? Mahler does video essays where he often breaks down media in its entirety, critiques it, and occasionally offers remedies to solve the things he's critiquing. Is he making bad content? When I made my second video on the movie Talk to Me, and I went over how people are shilling a movie that was written with no forethought put into its rules and ideas, is that bad content? My video is vastly different from what you would normally see on Mahler's channel, but theoretically, you could put them both in this category of bad content. This is an obvious problem because this category you've created is too broad. That makes it generally useless at this moment.
Despite being the most popular form of media analysis on the platform, I've started to feel like it's sometimes a little one-dimensional. That doesn't mean it doesn't have value, of course. It can still be funny to see someone rant and rave about something they don't like for 30 minutes to an hour. But as far as serious media analysis goes, I feel like its potential is somewhat limited.
Again, because you haven't defined this category clearly, it's useless. You show Angry Joe as your example for someone ranting for 30 minutes about something they don't like. You could, I guess, argue Angry Joe is being one-dimensional if what he truly does is just rant at a camera for 30 minutes about something he doesn't like. And to this statement about bad content being more popular than, I guess, good content, Cinema Wins and Cinema Sins contradict this point entirely. If I look up Cinema Sins, the most popular videos on YouTube are people critiquing them and actively saying Cinema Wins is better. If I do the reverse, there's nothing nearly as popular critiquing Cinema Wins. Mahler and EFAP also contradict this point. People constantly have to smear what they do, which is just media breakdowns generally, because oftentimes they don't mindlessly glaze things. I recommend looking at my second Talk to Me video because Papa Meat and Moist Critical incorrectly summarize the movie, praise it to the high heavens, and people do nothing but agree with them in their comments. The framing that bad content is more popular than the good content doesn't really track with your examples. And you are saying this in a video that will negatively critique the Dragon Ball Resurrection F movie. You fucking idiot.
It's kind of easy to point at things on the screen and say things like, "That's stupid," or "That doesn't make sense," and to make matters worse, people will often take these surface-level takes and proceed to treat them like gospel, which has unfortunately made the problem with media literacy on the internet even worse. That's why with my first two videos, I tried to focus on more positive subjects. Overall, I think there can be a lot more to learn about a piece of media, or even just art in general, by examining something you think is good or maybe misunderstood, rather than focusing on something you only have negative things to say about.
You still have yet to turn bad content into a meaningful category. And if that's all people are doing, saying that thing is bad and that thing don't make sense, how are their videos so long? How are my videos when I break something down so long? How could someone point at something in their video for more than 30 minutes without saying more than thing bad. You are contradicting yourself. If this entire video you do something more than point at this movie you think has damaged a franchise and say thing bad, you are simplifying critique for no reason. You are presumably doing it. And to your comment about learning from things you think are good or misunderstood, no, you're just wrong. I guess no fucking shit you're wrong. You just said media literacy on the internet is being damaged by the broad, useless category of thing bad content that you still did not define or show examples of. I think you can learn plenty from Talk to Me, Stalker Shadow of the Zone the movie, and Inscription. I think you can learn plenty on how not to structure a story and to follow the rules for your own universe. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it automatically cannot give you something of value. Because at that point, everything in the world is disliked by at least one person. Can they not provide valuable reasons as to why? As to what would change their opinions? As to how something in the future that does something similar would also be something they hate?
With that being said, though, criticism is an important part of art, and that means there will always be a place for more negative critique.
Go fuck yourself. You just spent the last minute saying thing bad content, a broad and useless category with no examples, is one-dimensional. You did that despite not even realizing that thing good content is often just as or more popular. And now, you want to say critique will always have a place? You just devalued critique with your broad, example-less, stupid category. And you're framing critique as only negative. If you look up the definition for critique, it specifically says you are assessing strengths and weaknesses. You want to be a Glazer-only channel? Fine, then go slob on your favorite knobs. But don't tear down everything else because you want to make critiques sound as if they're only negative and less than useless. Fucking Christ. I'm already pissed and we haven't even gotten to the main topic. Knob Glazer and Anti-Hater's problems is that he makes thing bad content far too broad of a category. It envelops not only rant videos that maybe Angry Joe does, but complete breakdowns and critiques that someone like Mahler would do. Also, Knob Glazer here wants to do critiques when he feels like it, but devalues them by saying they're only one-dimensional and that people cling to them like gospel. But then he wants to turn around and say critique has its place, and despite its definition for it, makes critiques out to be exclusively negative content that fits into his category that is far too broad. He does not provide examples, his category is useless, and he wishes to devalue critics. And he wishes to devalue critiques while making them himself.
That boy's been out in the sun without his hat on for way too long.
Anyways, now on to Marco Meatball's video, which I believe is, unfortunately, an evolution of the arguments we just covered.
Have you ever been one guide before online? I'm sure you have. I was recently one guide, and this video is not really about being, one guide so much as it is about critique. Why does everyone have a boner for critique?
A boner for critique? You do realize critique is how things get better, right? We already talked about it with the other guy, but critique itself isn't inherently negative. You can be pointing out flaws in something or points to be improved, obviously. But you could also be pointing out the good in something, or the points that others should look to because they've been done well here. I get the feeling we're not going to get examples in this video either, though. There's not a funny clip of him getting one guide, no examples for people having a boner for critique. It is demoralizing to be shadowboxing ghosts, FYI.
I really got to thinking about this. The idea of destruction versus building versus, admiring. Oh, if you're watching this for the first time, my name is Marco. I love talking about video game music and games, and I was an opera singer for 14 years. And the thing is, in my time in the opera world, the critique was constant, and it wasn't constructive most of the time.
We have the definition problem here, again. You're not really defining critique to us, and you're parsing out that it was often destructive to you and not constructive. Critique can be either of those things, definitionally, and without knowing what you mean when you say destructive or constructive criticism, or critique in general, I can't argue if your framing is exaggerated or improper. I'm in this nebulous area of trying to figure out what you mean because you just can't say it yourself.
In fact, it often ended up being destructive. And by that I mean, I'd go into a practice room, or I'd go into a coaching, and you would sing a phrase and be like, nope, that's not right. You need to do this, 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 this. Nope, your vowels are not right. Nope, you need to do this. Nope, no, no, oh.
So you could say that's rude criticism, but it is constructive. Those people are telling you what to improve. If you don't like the way they're saying it, fine. I personally think they sound rude if they're critiquing you in that way. However, it is a coaching session or lesson. They're probably not there to be your friend. They're probably there to make you better. Regardless of if they were harsh or soft with their criticism, you've been told what to improve on. So now, destructive to Marco Meatball here seems to involve rudeness in some way. This is retarded. Your tone and attitude change how your criticism is received, but just because you're a raging asshole doesn't mean your critique of a burnt pizza becomes destructive criticism.
And you have this like sort of non-stop sort of cut, clean, cut, clean until it's perfect.
That is the point of critiquing something though. You want it to get better. Just because you put your finger quotes on it doesn't mean something can't be perfect anyways. If you draw a line using a ruler and it's 100% straight with no curves or dips or anything, it's a perfectly straight line. And as a performer, did you not want your performance to be the best it could be? You just wanted these coaching and opera lessons to be what? You going in, getting your balls fondled? You just get it perfect every time? You just get up on that stage, never make a mistake? That's impossible. Without critique or a correction or any feedback, there would eventually be a time where you do something that ruins your performance, and you might not have even known what it was.
Over time, what I've discovered is I find critique on the whole incredibly boring.
That's totally fine, but it's a far cry from your title of critique is killing video games. You do realize, in a sense, to review a game is to critique it? Whether to be constructive or deconstructive, a review of a game is a critique. You could point out things you want other games to replicate because this particular feature was implemented so well, and you could simultaneously say you think that this particular feature in this game was so horrible and explain why and how it could have been better. Both of those critiques of different game features could be in a review for a game. Does that review become boring now because of the deconstructive and critical coverage of certain features? Or do you still enjoy that review because it praised certain aspects of the game?
It's not to say that constructive criticism doesn't have merit or a purpose or a time with which it should be given, but constructive criticism and feedback is so different from critique.
It's not, though. A critique can be constructive criticism. These things aren't inherently opposites, as with the game review example. You can have parts of the review where you praise certain game mechanics, and other parts of the review where you talk about how lackluster mechanics could be changed to be better. If I'm honest, it just sounds like you don't like rude critiques, really, considering your earlier example of the opera lessons and coaching sessions. But being rude doesn't inherently devalue a critique or criticism. And fuck off with these finger quotes around critique. If you aren't going to give definitions for anything, you don't get to pretend that you're talking about fake critiques. You haven't defined what a real critique would be to you, so don't pretend that you're shitting on so-called fake critiques with your dumbass finger quotes.
I think we live in a time where we have to be like with our checklist, and we have to be doom, 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 doom. This isn't good. This isn't good. This isn't good. This could be better. This could be improved. This is this.
Even in your example, you're conflating this finger quotes critique with what you called constructive criticism. You said, going over your imaginary checklist, that certain things would be improved. This is why you should have defined what you're talking about. Critique can be constructive, it can be critical, it can be deconstructive, it can be supportive. And is it any wonder that people have become more critical over time? How are you supposed to trust game reviewing websites when they say Star Wars Outlaws, a notoriously buggy game, is a 7 out of 10? If the critics and reviews are incompetent, you want people to do what? sit on their fucking thumbs and not review things in a more fair manner in their plays?
And I don't know if it's like a global problem beyond the scope of gaming, but I certainly see it in discourse across the board in gaming.
You need to stop with the goddamn finger quotes. Finger quoting discourse and not telling me what you mean or giving examples is useless. How am I supposed to know what you mean with all these goddamn finger quotes and no examples or definitions? You even fucked up before with your finger quotes critique, because the imaginary checklist example you used didn't separate critique from constructive criticism like you keep doing.
You know, there's criteria, and if those criteria are not met, then therefore the game is immediately thrown out, or, you know, whatever.
Or whatever? You mean if the game doesn't meet somebody's checklist, they should, I don't know, critique what they think could have been done instead? By dismissing all other things that could be done as or whatever, you make it sound as if someone's criteria isn't perfectly met, they just give up on a game. There's this cool thing called compromise. Clearly you haven't heard of it. You won't get everything you want on your game checklist every time. You're gonna have to give up on some of those things and choose what you're gonna have as deciding factors on if you invest in a game. If you despise MOBA style games, you're probably not gonna play League of Legends. Did you throw away the game because of that? No! It just wasn't something you were willing to invest into. And even in this sense, League of Legends is a massive fucking game. It's gonna be totally fine if people choose not to play it.
And I find this sentiment very fascinating because it's very hard to gain chances if you have a bad go of it the first round. Like if something, you know, if you have like a shit ton of server queues and so there's this really tough, you don't get into the game right away. Someone heads over to Steam and is like, well, the server queue is negative, you know, and it's like, it's very interesting because I find that the constructivity is very difficult for people.
As previously stated, you can't even define critique in a way that it excludes constructive criticism in the way you've been doing. This isn't even a distinction you've been able to do yourself, let alone with definitions. And yes, if a game has horrible queue times, that should be known to people. Just because you put a filter on and do a satirical voice doesn't invalidate that information. How much worse do you think it would be for a game if nobody knew that the server queue times were extremely long? Do you think it would be better? And realistically, if you don't know how that game's system works, all you can really do is say the queue times are way too long, it's hard to enjoy the game. I hope this is something they fix in the future.
You know, I had an amazing comment was, I feel like you're kind of losing yourself to try to placate the algorithm or something. And then that person came back and said, you know, with these particular shorts, I feel like we're still getting a glimpse of who you are. And it's amazing to know that you're still that person, even though your content's shifted.
So that example, once again, doesn't say anything. If you're a naturally critical person, what does it mean for a commenter to say they feel like you're losing yourself to please the algorithm? We already talked about how CinemaSins gets more criticism than cinema wins, so the algorithm, in the sense of media analysis, leans in the favor of praise. And because your example is too vague, what is even the real you? If you're changing, can't that just be a natural shift of your opinions? It has to be because you're pleasing the algorithm of... what, exactly? Because a majority of your videos are just you talking about video game music, and most of it is generally praise. Almost none of these thumbnails are negative.
That's wonderful, because the first one actually stuck with me, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I make sure that I'm staying authentic and consistent to my identity as a person? Not necessarily how I'm being perceived, because I have no control over that, but how do I make sure that I'm staying, you know, fluid?
So you being true to yourself is being... fluid? What does that even mean? Do your opinions shift very easily? Is it hard to pin down what your exact opinion is going to be because you're so objective? What do you mean? Explain yourself just one fucking time. You know how to control how you're being perceived? You explain yourself.
Or if a person's like, hey, Marco, this is great. It's not even about fluffing it up with like a compliment before, but it's like, you know, fundamentally, the tone is great. You sound good. Let's make sure that we're not dipping in pitch here. So let's work on ensuring this, and this. Rather than you suck, this is not good. You need to fix this because it's bad. There's a difference.
So I was right. You're just being sensitive. Those are both critiques of something. Those are both constructive criticisms. You just don't like that one is being phrased in an abrasive way. You know what? Fuck that. Some people don't listen if you're nice to them. They only listen if you're rude, blunt, or mean. So fuck this shit where we have to be nice and dance around everyone's sensibilities, because sometimes people only listen to you if you're blunt in the first place.
I personally, and I've invited musicians to come here and listen to music with me, as maybe some of you have seen. Sometimes they're a little bit neutral, or sometimes they're not harsh. Interestingly enough, when they are harsh, we really don't like that. If they're too nice, we also really don't like that. We'd like a little bit of like difficult. We don't want it to be too much on either side, right?
This is not something you or the audience gets to control. If you bring on a musician to listen to a song and it's some brain rot bullshit where all the instrumentals are off key, off beat, and occasionally the song is interrupted by a fart reverb effect, that song is complete dog shit. There is no middle of the road neutrality for that. Some things are just unabashedly bad, and some things are just undeniably good to people. You don't get to control that just because you don't like people being too harsh or glazers.
But I think it's interesting how some of the people I've had come on, they're like, I don't really like to critique because it's very easy to shit on something or reduce it or break it down into its parts and like, you know, like, but it's like the point is that like we should be allowed to enjoy.
Nobody is saying you can't enjoy things, you asshole. Is that what this whole video has been? A goddamn psyop because you feel like people are critiquing things you like? If you don't like critique, if your guests don't like critique, fine, ignore it. But then understand that nothing is going to get better. The only reason things improve is because of critique. Because critique is neither positive nor negative inherently. You can point out things you like and want to see elsewhere in a critique. And in that same critique, you can point out something you think needs to be improved because it hinders everything around it. I don't... Oh, this is so retarded!
And enjoying things is also having a strong statement about them. Enjoying things, unabashedly so, without this, that, and the other to weigh you down. Just having a good time. That is also a statement.
So you want people to make the statement in one direction? I can't come out here, break down what I liked and didn't like about a game, point out things I think could have been better, point out what I think was amazing. I just have to sit here and glaze something? Didn't you just a moment ago say that you want musicians you bring onto your videos to not lean into liking something too much or hating something too much? You just said that loving something is unabashedly a statement. Am I not allowed to dive into why you like something? I can't ask questions. We can't have a discussion about those things. I can't critique and evaluate your standards for liking something? What the fuck is this hugbox shit you're advocating for? If everyone just liked everything all the time and there was no critiques or criticism for anything, nothing would ever get better. You want to unabashedly like something? Fine. Then I get to unabashedly break down, critique, and give constructive criticism to something. These things, by the way, you still haven't defined in a way that separates them out.
You don't have to rock the boat in order to enjoy what you enjoy. And I think it's interesting that the only time that we perceive authenticity is usually when there's critique involved.
Generally, someone is perceived as authentic when they can critique and enjoy something, because not everything is perfect. Eternal Return is a game I love playing, but it's obviously not perfect. Neither is Warhammer 40k Darktide, and I still sink a majority of my game time into those games. If anything, the question of your authenticity arises when you enjoy a game or critique a game and simply can't justify it. So long as you can explain yourself in a way that makes sense, you're fine.
From a creator perspective, it's like if you enjoy something, then you're clearly sponsored or you're paid. And I know this is like stupid. This is stupid.
From a creator standpoint, if you like something, you're sponsored. No, you fucking idiot. You want to know why people probably come to that conclusion? Because people are out here liking shit for no reason. How are you supposed to come to the conclusion that a game review on IGN of Star Wars Outlaws wasn't sponsored when they can barely summarize the story fairly like EFAP does? And IGN has incentive to review the game as well. How do you think they get to play these games early? Review them before they come out. Just fucking network themselves because you can't go anywhere today without a fucking connection. If they review one of these big game company games accurately, they just cut themselves off from an amicable relationship and all the perks and smoozing that comes with it. Oh, and if you really do think this is stupid, shut the fuck up. You're stupid. You still haven't defined critique in a way that separates constructive criticism like you want it to. And you fuck up all the examples you use in this video.
But I do think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting that the idea that like enjoying something is not a strong enough statement. I like this. Nier has the greatest soundtrack I've ever heard. Bloodborne has the greatest soundtrack in gaming. That's not a it can't possibly be. That's not a critique. A critique is much more meaningful. Is it?
A critique would give you reasons why you should believe those things. If you're not going to give reasons, then enjoying something just because is the weakest position you can have. You can't support your opinion, you can't point to why you're enjoying something, you just enjoy it to just enjoy it. What a meaningless, brainless, worthless position! And especially for something like music that has so much variety. I have a friend who hates funk music because it all sounds the same to him. Do you think I'm going to get him to like funk just to enjoy it? And if he critiques a funk song, I can try and find one that alleviates his problems with the genre. So yes, critique is deeper than your useless ass is making it out to be.
I think it's interesting. I think critique is an interesting conversation. What does critique even mean? Is my content too praiseworthy? No, I've got into trouble with the Genshin Impact community. I get in trouble for saying I don't like Persona 5's music. On my Patreon live streams on Friday, when folks present me with music and they want to share music that they find interesting, I will let them know if I like it or don't like it or if it's fine or whatever. And then I try to explain why, because I find it interesting to be like, okay, well, I don't really like this. I don't really like this. I don't really like this. But I love this. I love this. I love this. Right? There's a way, I think, that we need to reclaim what criticism and critique is, and sometimes it's just simply not needed.
You're doing it every Friday. Clearly, critique is needed, and you can't even define it. If you looked it up on a computer that you're sitting in front of, you would know that critique is neither negative nor positive, just an objective assessment. This means at the beginning, when you were talking about constructive criticism, you can do that in a critique. We will always need objective assessments for everything. And you not even being able to tell me what you mean by criticism, not being able to tell me what you mean when you say we need to take back the word, or not even being able to separate it from constructive criticism is not a good case for how critique is killing video games. Remember that fucking title? How fucking clickbait is that? We're 1 minute from the end of this video and he's come nowhere close to even touching his title. This is what I meant in my clickbait video, by the way. This is some fucking bullshit. You didn't even come close to this damn title.
I was having a conversation with the guys over at Grinding Gear, and we're talking about Clear Obscure. I was like, I feel weird, because here we are, talking about the game. It's just good. We can talk about the intricacies of things, or, you know, maybe what we could have liked better, right? But like, in general, the game is just positive. It's funny to just praise something, because it's almost like praising is a radical act. Just enjoying stuff, you know, and if you don't have a strong opinion about why it's not good, something's wrong with you.
Something is wrong with you. You just said you could have talked about improvements that could have been made to that game, and you didn't. Because you just wanted to glaze it. Good or not, there are always improvements you can make. You think they're going to know what to improve if everyone was as retarded as you? If nobody left it in their reviews and said something? Because you didn't just like it. You said it was a good game and could have been improved. Oh, but you just don't want to talk about that. What if one of those issues was a deal breaker for someone? You're just not going to let people know about those things in that game that need improvement? That could turn them off from the game entirely? You're going to willingly let people waste money on something because you don't want to talk about the issues you had with a game. Because you want to sit here, praise the shit out of it, and not critically think about the game. You selfish fuck.
I feel like everything right now is so like this or that, or, you know, You don't have enough to say about it. It's like, well, it's okay to like stuff. You don't always have to be critical about it. Just enjoy it. And if you don't like it, don't engage with it. I don't know. Bye.
Don't engage with it if you don't like it? You just spent most of the video talking about how praising things is something that's widely stigmatized on the internet. And you're going to tell me to not talk about something if I don't like it? That is the true stigma right there. That people like you and a very bad but sad boy don't like people criticizing things. You just want to be able to sit around, fucking like things for no reason, and not get your opinion scrutinized. God forbid someone have reasoning that you have to deal with because someone has an opposing opinion to you. This mentality that critique is something to be avoided, to be actively discouraged, will only make things worse. How does a game know what issues to prioritize with their next update if all their reviews refuse to critique the game fairly? How does an up-and-coming film writer know how to make his payoffs more satisfying and his plot more consistent if nobody will challenge his scripts? Unabashed praise and sweeping negativity are both clearly bad. Nobody gains anything useful from just getting glazed or just getting beaten over the head with how shit they are. But clearly, critique is something that's been twisted. Critique itself doesn't prohibit you from liking or hating something in its definition, but it's framed as a device for negativity. Constructive criticism is a part of critique, and Marco Meatball can't explain to you how they're distinctly exclusive. And still, people like a very bad but sad boy will tell you that you can gain more out of looking into something you love and think is misunderstood. This mentality does damage. How do you trust someone if they can't engage with something critically? How do you look at someone's opinion when they enjoy something just because? How useful is the world of reviews, critiques, retrospectives, fucking everything when no one can be honest? The way you build trust with people depends on your honesty. You want to be a glazer? Be honest about it. And don't fucking turn around and tell me not to engage with things I don't like, because your argument is gonna fall apart the moment you realize I enjoy critique.